There we go. Okay, so picking up where we left off yesterday, the wands. And this is a good energy to start today's session with. Very positive, excited, and I hope y'all are feeling that way. I have some great combinations today of breakout rooms that I think that you will all enjoy and find really good compatibility with the person that you're going to be talking to. And we'll talk more about how we're going to do that, and I'll also do some spreads before I ever even release y'all into that space so you feel comfortable. But so yes, the Ace of Wands, speaking of electricity, magic, passion, the Ace of Wands to me, God, it means so many things. I really love to try to pick up on a person's energy with this card to really tap into specific possibilities, because this card is magic, and it is about somebody's personal abilities in that space, like God-given gifts that we are on fire to pursue and expand. And as a reminder from yesterday, you know, aces are the seeds in the ground and they turn into forests. And the Ace of Wands is a builder, a creator, the artist. We all are. Nobody's exempt from possessing some of the energy of the wands, which I love, you know. And so it's not uncommon to see this card for writers. So it's almost like a pen in the hand, right? And moving. For people who are building things with wood, it can be literal like that. You can pick up on literal notes in here, and it can also be super abstract. It's whatever, just touch into that place. And we're going to talk about that today after this, how to get in touch with our own intuition to build upon card meanings. This one is a great one to use in that regard, because I think your imagination is the limit. If you feel it, that it could possibly be so when we see this card. The next one is the Two of Wands. I always call this card the little sister of the world. And y'all may remember the world yesterday from the Major Arcana. The world asks us to think without boundaries, without limitations. And that's what's happening here in this card too. I mean, they're even holding the world in the palm of their hand. This person's in a high place, on a cliff, on a mountaintop, and they have the ability to see into the distance. They have the gift of vision here, being a visionary, being a leader. And the next card, which we'll see here in a second, will ask us to do the work to make these dreams happen. But for now, all we're supposed to do is manifest, go wild. Just go wild with it. Oh, I just got my cup of water filled. Thank you, James. The next card is the Three of Wands. And this is what we talked about just briefly a second ago, is so that the two is us thinking beyond our wildest expectations of this life, or whatever it is that's coming up next in our path. Now in this card, we have picked up our walking stick, put on our walking shoes, and now it's time to do the work, right? Because nothing's handed to us free. Means maybe sometimes it is, but we can't expect that to be the case. So we've thought big. Now we're going to narrow down. Now we've chosen the path. We're about to go down the mountain, down to the direction that we've chosen. We're getting down to work. My goal is set. And some cards like that fit really well together. These two do, like, these are stepping stones, one on top of the other, and it just makes a clear picture. It's almost kind of like, even like in a reading, admit, this is a great example of how we might even combine two cards in a reading or a spread, which we'll get to later as well. Think big, and like as a current card, think big in the future. Cool. Now we're going to take the steps and get there. It's as simple as that. So the Four of Wands, I always call this a love card in disguise. It doesn't have to be, but it is about two. And fours are that as well. Fours break, the number 4 breaks down to a 2. 2 twos. So there's something here about the two people that are standing side by side. Is somebody celebrating with us, supporting us, rejoicing in our victory, in our wins? Is this a marriage? Is this a celebration of another type that feels big and lovely? Anyway, you know, it's as happy as it looks. It's a pretty happy card, and it can be about the person and not about the two, but I'm never shocked when I find that there is another person involved when this card shows up. So just keep that on your radar if you ever see this in a reading. So as with any of the paths, in any suit from the Ace to the 10, we see the roller coaster, right? It's like telling a story. We enter in, we're new, we're beginners, we hit a high right off the bat, but then we have like several obstacles as we go. And at the end, the goal is to either achieve or not achieve. And then we start over. So here we go with the first real obstacle for the wands, the 5 of Wands. And this one isn't even really too bad, but it is showing conflict, competition. If somebody's going for a job, I might say that there are others who are maybe equally as qualified going for it as well, that there's going to be not a fight, but you'll certainly have to apply yourself and be aggressive even to make sure that you come out on top. This could be infighting within a family or a community. It could be inner conflict about a decision you're trying to make and not really knowing which direction you're going to go with it. So this could, in that sense, be an interesting card to see with justice, because we talked about justice yesterday as a decision that on the table that we need to make. If we were to see this next to it, I would feel like you or whoever we're reading for is going to have a difficult time figuring out which way to go. So I love this card, the 6 of Wands. It's the victory card, the big win. It's the green light. If you're looking for a green light on a project, it's you know, it can be a little cocky. Wands in general can be a little cocky, a little full of themselves. But I don't really ever. I mean, sometimes I might throw out in a reading that I feel like this person might need to have an ego check. But usually this is a pretty happy card to see if you want something, because it seems like you've been released to move forward, and there's a celebration behind that. This person's chin is up. There's nothing in the way between them and the thing that they want. So as in the Chariot, as for example too, which we saw in the Major Arcana, the Chariot is moving toward their goal too, but they're having to work, and there's like, you know, there's some real focus happening there and application. But here we won. We've gotten it. We reached that finish line. So it's a really good card to see if you want. It's a great yes card too, if you want to know if something's going to happen in particular. And I would love to say too, really, really quick, because I want to say it, I'm not sure that I'll remember later because I have an itinerary for y'all. But you know, there is power too in manifesting cards. We don't have to wait for this card to show up to apply it to apply its energy and attitude to our lives. So if I want something to happen and I want to embody that feeling of receiving and basking in the glory and joy of something coming to a realization, I might choose to look at this card before the win ever happens, because it's kind of like a vision board in that way, right? It's allowing us to feel that thing, which kind of opens a door for it to start to come in and to be a reality. If we already believe and think that it could be possible, then it's more likely to happen. So don't ever wait for these kinds of cards to show up for you. Hang them up on a wall or look at it first thing in the morning and be like, I manifest this to be true. I call this into my life. That's very powerful. It's a great meditation. The Seven of Wands. This isn't too much of a sign of trouble, but it is saying to me that you're having to stay on top of it. That there are certainly things coming at you from different directions, and you're kind of like the whack-a-mole just to kind of stay on top of it. But in this card, though, these wands are not eye level with this person. They're still above. So they're still in control and have power. So, and it could be a sign or a message, or it could be a message for somebody to keep paying attention, that there are things coming your way that will need to be handled and maneuvered around. But in general, I feel like this person's got it under control, but they're certainly not like chilling on their sofa watching Netflix and eating popcorn. Like, you know, they're having to work for whatever it is that they're trying to get here. The Eight of Wands. Quick movement, receiving. Imagine this as an arc doing this. So we're on the descent here, and here's the ground. So whatever it is, this process, and you know, it's not a coincidence that this is an 8, so we're close to the 10. We should be wrapping up our experience here. And we're in the wand suit. It is saying that we've put so many like irons on the fire, and that whack-a-mole is really coming into play now, that we might need to be like making sure everything's cool. We're also receiving quickly news about our performance or our understanding about where we are in the process. And by the 8s, a lot of the time too, we've put in most of the work, or we're in that last big push. So we kind of can see what's happening and what the possibilities are of what's happened between the Ace and the 8. So speaking of, I wanted to show this as an example. We just talked about this card, and the wands are below us and we're in control. Well, here, this is an example of the wands not being in control and being above us, towering in a way, and that maybe some of these things, that this overambitious attitude that we've had about some things, have come back to wound us or hurt us in some way. This person's got a bandage around their head, a bandage on their arm, and they're weary, they're tired, and they're skeptical. It's overwhelming. And these things have not, the process of getting to the 10 has not been the beautiful, peaceful picture that we saw once in the 2 of Wands. So, you know, and I'm just telling y'all the story of the arc right now of each suit. Really, though, we detach from that in spreads, and they all form their own narrative in combination with all of the suits and all of the major arcana. So, as with tarot, you take what you need, you take what makes a light go off in your brain and use it for yourself. And if it doesn't work for you, then you release it. You know, you'll read that a lot of places, like take what works, let go what doesn't. And right now we are learning about the cards, but I'm also telling you about the cards in context to the arc of its particular element. So the last card is the 10. And I kind of hit on this yesterday, that, you know, each card has their own finale, and some have real happy endings, some don't, like we saw in the swords. And this one isn't bad, but it's kind of saying, like, even though we're at the 10, we're still not quite there. Like, this person's destination is here, It's much closer than they think and they realize. They can't see where they're going because they're blinded by this heavy load that they're carrying. But they will reach the goal. They will make it. But it's been pretty exhausting, and it's been a challenging process. So the wands definitely bit off more than they could chew, but they had the energy to back it up and the will to back it up and the fire. So I love the wands. So we go into the court cards now for wands, and the first is the page. And he's like looking at something right off a screen here or a card that we can't see. He has something to look forward to in the future. He's excited. He's receiving maybe some really positive news about something that he was hoping to be a part of or to receive. So once again, like I said yesterday, in general, pages bring good news. And so he's definitely, or he or she is receiving good news. And I'd like to say as well, I didn't say this yesterday, I did say it in the tweet page of mine YouTube talk earlier this week. The pages are also known as princesses in a lot of decks. So, and the original intent for these cards, the pages were to be female. So keep that in mind. But then I would say overall, this is a genderless card. This can be anybody. And so we are all receiving something positive when a page shows up. Okay, and today I saved, because we're doing the wands and cups today, I saved the good knights for last. Well, the knights that I like more than the others. So as we talked about, knights are too much or too little. This guy is just super excited. Knights are a lot. They're the people that are around that you just wish would just like go do something else for a minute, because they're like getting all up in your energy and your space. They're a lot. They're big, and we can all be knights if we're excited or if we're embodying whatever element they're in. But this one for sure, if it's in us, it can feel really good. It's like, I feel like the king of the world. I can take these creative projects on, or whatever it is I want. It doesn't have to be creative, but they oftentimes are. And I'm full steam ahead. And he's like had 10 cups of coffee, you know? And also if the knights aren't present enough, which is the other possibility for knights, but is the less probable situation, then this person might be a little lazy, and this card is asking them to like light a fire under their butt, to like get motivated, see the big picture, to see what's the gifts that are right in front of them to like take and receive. If they could just show some momentum here. But usually knights are very present. So this is a big energy, big card, big person, big personality. And then the Queen of Wands. She's also one of my favorites in the Minor Arcana. We talked yesterday about the Nine of Pentacles. She's also one of my favorites in the minors. The Queen of Wands is charming, charismatic, magnetic. She's got something that people are just kind of like a little bit interested in, or a lot interested in. She would be the great face of a brand, of a product, or like a speaker. She's just cool. She's cool. And wands, as we talked about, can be cocky, but that's because they're confident. And of course, we can all be a little too much of anything. You know, there's always like a sliding scale of whatever that is. But she's, in general, very likable. She's probably the one that's going to be on the homecoming court, not because she's the most popular girl in school, but because, I mean, she could be, but because popularity in this sense, like she is liked by the vast array of different types of people that are represented in any sort of large group. She stands out. So it's pretty cool to get her. She could tell us that we are her, or that we need to be more like her. The King. I often find that he shows up as a person. Even though kings are generally environments, this would be an environment of creativity, of owning your space, of sitting on your throne of your craft and being excellent at it. But also I find that he can be representative, more so than other kings, of people in somebody's life. A love interest, brother, you get the picture. But either way, it's a positive thing. It's not a negative. If he is somebody or if he is an environment, it's very positive. And there's something about us thriving here and being able to create, and that we have the wisdom and experience in our space to do well at our craft. So now we're going to the cups. The cups are beautiful. Cups are water. Cups are emotions, relationships, the bonds we form with other people, and also with ourselves. Self-love is in here too. And I think I talked a bit yesterday about how I feel like, in particular, this ace has an ancient feeling to it, that we should be open in this regard, that when we see this Ace of Cups, to let it go back in time, way back in time, maybe even before this life. Sorry, there is like significant wind here today, so there's things like crashing all around me. So be open to the fact that this could precede the birth of this life. This could be other lifetimes that we've experienced, that we've loved, that we've suffered, all the things that we carry with us now that have made us emotionally wiser, have advanced our EQ, emotional intelligence. So, but the Ace of Cups, if somebody is asking about love, once again, aces are seeds in the ground turned into forests. If we see this card and somebody's about to enter a relationship, this could mean that there is some longevity possible here, or that there is some sort of ancient connection in general. Maybe if they aren't meant to be your intimate partner, that there's still something here of significance that's worth noting. And why are they in our lives? What are they here to teach us? And one of people's favorite cards, the Two of Cups, especially when we're asking about love, and even with work. It's the little sister of the lovers. It's of the two coming together, forming a bond, a union. It feels romantic, doesn't it? Like it is. It does not have to be gender specific, like we're seeing here, a man and a woman. It could be anybody, and entering into love, intimacy, connection. And this also works on a, like I said a minute ago, a business level side, because like this could be a collaboration. It could be you merging with a new place or a workforce or a team. Yeah, the possibilities here are pretty easy to understand. And I also really like this card because we're seeing eye to eye. We're level, we're balanced. The power is the same for both. Yeah. So it's a beautiful card, and people love to see it when relationships are the question, as one should. I mean, this is generally good news, unless there's something around it that's pointing to some sort of complication or some layers of detail that we can't see from just this one card. The Three of Cups. Happy card. You may remember us talking about group cards yesterday, and this is the last one. There were three. There's three of them. The Hierophant, the Three of Pentacles, and the Three of Cups. This is about us with others who celebrate us or something together. It's joy, it's friendship, it's sisterhood, it's the party, you know, like if somebody's asking me, should I throw a holiday party this year? And this card shows up. That's a pretty clear yes, you know. This is going to be a hot ticket in town and people are going to have a really good time and it should be a lot of fun. So you get how you can use this. And also too, this in a work situation, if there's like a small group, small business, there seems to be some cohesion here, people working well together and enjoying each other's company. So you get the idea with that. So the Four of Cups is the end of one of the cycles for the cups before we enter a new cycle of learning and experiencing emotion. Here, you know, think about it just for a second. If you look at this card, before I even tell you, just think for like, what does this feel like to you? What is this person doing? Or what are their intentions? And just look at it for one second, and then I'm going to tell you what the traditional meaning is. Because this is an example of you looking at this card, perhaps without knowing anything about it, is an example of you using your intuition about a card, based purely on the visuals themselves, and no words. That's why these kinds of decks are so great to learn from, because they give us a lot of cues. It's pretty easy to tell if this person's rejecting whatever it is that's being offered to them. So one of the traditional interpretations of this card is that the things that we have maybe said thanks to and yes, I want, maybe even yesterday in the recent past, we now say thanks, but no thanks. I'm about to move up, level up. I need more. What was good enough yesterday is no longer good enough for today. So we're about to move forward, and the gifts that were so valuable 10 minutes ago no longer meet the quota of what we're here to learn on an emotional capacity. And then the Five of Cups. People get sad. I mean, it is kind of a sad card. It is grief. She should be taking a moment to look at some of these things that were really important to her that she's very obviously lost. These cups that were once upright and full of things that were important to her are now spilled over on the ground. Yes, now is the time to look at those and just be quiet and feel all the feelings that come along with that. There were some losses here, and this kind of is like a sting in the heart. Kind of feels, if you remember the Three of Swords, similar to that, and maybe not a coincidence that we see the three cups here, even though there's five, but three of these are tumbled over. The cool thing or the good news about this card is that once she's done with the grieving process, she can turn around and there are two gifts waiting for her. Life does move on. There is still value. There are still things to be excited about that we're going to love and cherish, just like those others. So she has a hopeful message, and she allows us to go through the process of being a human being with loss. The Six of Cups. This is typically a harder card for people to wrap their brains around, or their understanding around. And I get it. It's a very simple card in its most basic essence. It is the innocent giving from one person to another. That there's somebody either taking care of us or somebody that we're taking care of with no strings attached. This is an emotional gift that this person's offering to the other purely because they love them and they want them to be happy, and that they are just trying to state that they aren't alone. And it's just a comforting card. When our cup runneth over, we share it with somebody else that we love and care for. The Seven of, Seven of Cups is kind of flashy. You know, we're looking at a lot of really cool things in front of us, a lot of options, ideas that haven't come to fruition yet. They seem to be in the future. But we've got to pick one or two instead of all of them. And that can feel overwhelming. This person has some decisions to make. Though it is also very exciting to have so many possibilities in your future. And, you know, this could show up in a multitude of ways. We ask the question of how something might turn out. Well, there could be multiple ways of us reaching a destination. Which way are we going to choose? And this really is reliant on a lot of the cards that might be around it to tell us if we're going to be able to like narrow down our ideas and edit our life. I love this card, the Eight of Cups, the traveling card. We've talked about other travel cards, movement cards. So this is, I think, one of our last ones to talk about in the deck. And it can feel a little somber and sad because that moon looks kind of like, you know, a little down. But it's okay. Like, yes, we are leaving something behind. We're supposed to, because we're going on to our new thing. We have new emotional experiences to find on this journey of life. And we leave behind the gifts of this last chapter, maybe for somebody else to stumble upon and find when they enter this space. So yeah, it can be nostalgic for sure, but I also like it. This really kind of can be summarized in a feeling, a vibe way, just kind of comparing it to like leaving one house that you really loved, but outgrowing it or needing to move cities and moving into another house that you love, but it's still kind of sad. You're going to miss it. It brought you lots of gifts and it was joyful, but it's time. It's time to move on. So the 9 is generally thought of as the wish card, which can be very exciting. I like it, especially if we know what we want and what we're looking for. Like our greatest hopes and desires. If we can see it clearly with that chariot vision, then this card with the chariot is like is a reinforcement that, yeah, you're going to get this thing. You're going to reach the finish line. You're going to be, you know, sitting, you know, happy and cute here and eating all the things that once you get there. But this guy also says, be careful what you wish for. And we can see when we have cards around it, if that is something, if it's a warning or if it's going to be a gift. I would say generally I approach this card pretty positive, and I feel like as long as the person is reasonable in what they're asking for in their life, then why not? And they're doing the work to get it, then sure. You know, now is the time to reap the rewards. The 10 of Cups is the end of the cycle for cups. And as you can see, this is a very happy ending. We have a family. It is crazy to me sometimes how literal this card can be when it shows up. The literal 2 kids, whether they're here now or they'll be here in the future, the whole picture of the family. And it doesn't have to be, but it is about attaining the big picture of what you feel like is emotional fulfillment for you. What does that picture look like when you have all the things in your life that you need to feel completely loved and with others who mean the world to you? Also, there's a rainbow here, and you can identify with that in any way that you'd like. It could certainly be a symbol for some people that resonates in different ways. But yeah, we have a happy ending here with the cups, and this is a great card to see. It's never a bad one. So Court cards for cups, the page. Page is always good news. This, I always feel in cups in particular that these graduate. And I'm sure that's the case with all of them, but I really connect with this, the page graduating into the knight, graduating into the king. And erase gender there. This could be anybody. This is somebody who has a crush or a new love or embarking on a new relationship, being very hopeful, offering our heart freely and openly, or somebody doing that to us, and we know that they're being sincere and truthful. So I like that. As you know, pages are young, so there's a youthful beginningness here. The knight, I'm not as upset with this knight as I am with some, and this knight seems to have graduated from that crush to full-on pursuing for a relationship or knowing exactly what they want in this new like emotional pursuit. It doesn't have to be a relationship. It can be anything that we feel emotionally connected to. On the bad side, because knights do have a bad side, this could be somebody who is just too much and maybe obsessed with somebody or unable to stop thinking about something they love or want to love that doesn't belong to them. That is definitely the shadow side of this knight. But the positive side of this knight doesn't have to be bad. It could just be somebody who's going after what they want. I just hope that it's being received and wanted by the other end of that. Just because I talked about them as a trio, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the king. The king can be an environment of love, security, feeling protected, feeling like we're in a soft space to be who we are. He can also be a person, somebody who's maybe experienced in relationships, emotionally wise. I like him. He could be pointing to an older person than ourselves. Doesn't have to be much older, but they could be older. Yeah, I like him, and he, once again, depending on the reading, let him talk to you on what he's saying and what he means. And because we skipped her, and also to save the best for last, the Queen of Cups. She is, man, she's just the mom. She's the ultimate comforter, source of love. She's holding this chalice like it's her child, her baby. There are babies all over her throne. You know, this could be a cool card to see for somebody if they wanted to have a child. Also, childs don't have to be literal human being childs. They can be projects or anything that we want dearly and we will take care of and nurture, and it's our responsibility. She too can be indicator cards for water signs, especially women. She's just like a pillow. She's a soft pillow, and this is the kind of people we need in our lives. Well, there we go. We just went through all of the cards, and I'm not expecting y'all to remember even most of that, because really what's important is to be exposed to it often and to hear it and feel it and to allot time to just navigate our way through absorbing what the cards mean for us. So today we're going to talk about some spreads, and I think what I'm going to do is talk about spreads first, and then we can do our breakouts and see how those go. And then I have a few more things to talk about once we're done with that. But today we're not going to do anything scary or too hard or challenging. So I want you to not feel nervous. Really, like I said before, you can go into a reading, be handed a stack of cards for the first time, and have not ever seen them before, and still make a narrative based on the visual cues and formed around the question. I think you will probably surprise yourself at your ability to do that. And some of you here may have experience reading more than others. I know Trina has some decent experience reading. I'm not sure about Mary. Jamie has some, and Lily and Amber are new. So just the judgment-free zone. And I just want you to feel and say, you can't say anything wrong. So, but just really quick, or just for a minute, I want to talk to you about the kinds of spreads that we're going to do today and that are good for beginners. I really like when one is starting out with tarot to really focus on 1 card draws and 3 card spreads. So the 1 card draws can be done on another person. You can literally do a whole reading with 1 card if you needed to. You could find everything you needed from that one thing to kind of create a picture. But in general, 1 cards are good to draw for in the morning if you want to know about your day, in the evening if you want to reflect on the day you just had, or if you need any sort of insight as you're moving through, you can draw a card. These are great ways to learn the deck. So, but when we're reading for other people, and even for ourselves, it does become fun and more saturated when we allow other cards to come in to whatever it is we're seeking guidance on. And that's where a 3 card spread can be really nice. So, and the most basic of the 3 card spreads is the past on the left, present in the middle, future on the right. And it's as simple as that. The card in the past, on the past side, would represent what has led into the present situation. Could be yesterday, could have been the last year. We'll let it speak to us when we see it, and also let the question inform us. The present is now, what kind of energy we're manifesting, what the current situation is, and then the future is obviously, if we stay on this path, this is where we're going to end up. This is likely to happen. And once again, just because we see something in the future doesn't mean it can't be altered. In fact, sometimes we can see something that we do want to alter. And that's one of the great benefits of reading tarot, is the ability to have some insight as to how things might unfold. So I'm going to do a quick demo reading of past, present, future on, I'm just going to do it for myself. So I'm not going to put anybody on the spot. And then I'm going to show you how I would read and how quick it is and what are some things and how you can frame it. Just some language, just so you can see an example. So I usually shuffle. When I'm reading for somebody, I will shuffle for not a specific amount of time. I'll just stop whenever I feel like I'm ready. And then I'll hand them to the person and I'll ask them to shuffle 3 times. But obviously today we are doing this virtually, and this can be just as effective virtually. So in that case, you're just going to shuffle them until you feel like you've got them to where you want them to be. And in general, 3 is a really good number. So shuffle them 3 times. And then I cut them into, once again, you don't have to do this. I cut it into 3 stacks. And then I put it back in any order that I like into 1 stack. So you end up with 1 stack at the end. Does not have to be fancy. The cards will end up exactly where they need to be, no matter which way you do it. Just feel like when you're done, you're done. So now I'm going to pull 3 cards off the top, and I'm going to show them to y'all. But I'm going to do the past, the present, and the future. So the past is the Magician. I've been getting this one pretty frequently. It's one of my favorites. This is one of the first ones we talked about, so you may not remember much about it. but the magician has everything they need from the heavens and the earth to do whatever it is, whatever task is at hand. They create the life that they want. They have a lot of personal power. They don't need energy or support from others as much as they already have within themselves. It's magic. So it seems like for me or whoever, this person has been manifesting and accruing this ability and power and independence in their life. And they seem to be focusing it on, they seem to be using these talents and skills for a purpose of manifesting something. There seems to be a goal here that this person wants. And I would say that it's definitely in their reach and realm when the magician shows up. And then we go, I'm glad I got some difficult cards here because these are the ones that can be hard to read for somebody else. But don't be afraid, because just because we see a card that might feel problematic or scary doesn't mean that there aren't a million great things happening in that person's life. And maybe their life is really difficult right now. And it's kind of validating to see that show up in cards, that it's not all in our head, that somebody can see and help us move through that time. So my current is the Nine of Swords. It's saying that I am thinking about something quite a bit that's on my mind, and it might be like rotating thoughts. It's giving me some anxiety and some stress. And it might be around this thing, right? This thing that I've been working so hard on for so long and got so close to being able to realize maybe now has been changed in ways that were beyond my ability to shape and control. And that makes a lot of sense. A lot of you know that, I make movies and I write, and I have a lot of projects that are ready to go. And then here is like, well, this whole new reality, this new world that we're in changes the ability for me to have all this personal power to turn these things into actual tangible projects and movement. So that makes sense. And it's an easy thing for me to point to in my own life. And I'm sure a lot of us probably relate to this card right now in more than just one way. And then going into the future, really glad that I have a page here. Pages are young, have ability, are up to the task, and approach with an innocence and childlike attitude. So this page, like we said before, the swords have been dropped in a field and could pave their way out of this grass that's above their head that they can't see, just purely by instinct and knowing which direction to go just from within. So this tells me that I can define my new reality in my own way, that I'm going to be able to find and make my own path here. It may not be easy, but I've got the energy and fortitude to do it. So that's an example of a 3-card reading. And you don't have to be as familiar as me about the traditional meanings of a card. I think a lot of you probably could have picked up on the vibe of this card. This person's confident. They are pulling from above and from below. In the magician, that tells us a lot right there, that they have the ability to create magic. This doesn't look good, right? You probably would have picked up on that. Something's wrong with this person. This is not going the way they wanted it to, right? So that magician has turned into this. And this, this looks like a young athlete who can take on whatever it is that's about to challenge them. I think that you probably could have picked up on that too. Like, this person doesn't seem like they're ill or they're not able. It's the opposite. So that's how you frame a reading. And some of you might have questions you want to ask in particular to the person who's reading for you. You can do that, or we can just be real basic here and just do general readings and just be like, give me a general on Big picture, past, present, future. Yeah, I think we're back. Thanks, guys. Let me open the chat. Oh, okay. There's some questions here. Mary asked, is it significant for you that there were two swords cards in the reading for myself? Yes, that that those things that were coming at me with that Nine of Swords and the Page of Swords were intellectual challenges, intellectual roadblocks, if that makes sense. So that would make sense in the context I gave with, let's just say that they're movie projects, new world reality of new set of circumstances of how we get to make and do things. That's very much a sword space of configuring and process. And then the page then taking these swords and making sense out of them and then paving a new path into the future, if that makes sense. Well, I'm really proud of all of y'all. Y'all all did really good readings, and yeah, it is weird. Yeah, y'all did a really good job, and it was really cool to see what y'all were doing behind the scenes. So we have some more things to talk about before we break for the beginner session. And like I said yesterday, I've done this beginner session quite a bit. And some of the people that have done it in the past will be doing the intermediate and the advanced stuff. So if y'all want to join, there will be a lot of really cool people in those with various experience levels that I really like all of them very much. So, all right. So just a few more examples on what some alternative 3-card spreads could be. We just talked about past, present, future. You could also do mind, body, spirit, strengths, weaknesses, advice on a topic or a person or a question. You, the other person, and then the relationship, which is the two of you combined in the end. Opportunities, challenges, outcome. You see how that moves. And then I think the 3-card is also a great way to bridge into using your intuition and making your own spreads. Because really, you can do whatever you want. All you have to do is know what your intentions are and claim it before you do it. So if I want to tap into like some real spiritual stuff and I want to know more about my shadow self, which we'll talk about in a minute. The dark corners of the things I have shame about and I hide. And I wanted to also look at in the second card what I present to the world. And then the third card being how do I combine both of them to be a more complete or whole version of myself that I'm proud of, not only when I'm alone, but when I'm with other people. And I completely just made that 3-card spread up. So you can do that too. And you could go beyond 3 cards. Once you start feeling comfortable with that, there really is no limit on the amount of cards you can use. It's just your comfort level with that. And sometimes it's easier to do more complicated or longer spreads for other people. Because when we're doing it for ourselves, we can, like I've said before, be biased and plug in our own like hopes and wishes instead of seeing the truth the card is trying to present to us, and that can become even more compounded the more cards we use. But not to say that you shouldn't try to do multiple card spreads with yourself. I mean, you exist at all times, so you can practice on yourself. And maybe even do spreads for other people if they're not even around, if you want to practice. Like, I want to see what's going to happen with X over here in this situation. I'm going to do a Celtic cross spread, which is 10 cards. just so I can learn the placement of everything and see how a narrative unfolds. And what I did just mention there is called a Celtic cross spread. And that is it's a very common and old spread that people have used for a very long time. I use the Celtic cross spread a lot. And I've even adapted it into my own version where I call it an elongated Celtic cross spread. So, oh yeah, really quick, I wanted to show y'all, first off, here are 3 examples of some 3 card spreads. I'm putting it over here, a link that y'all can look at just for later reference. But the Celtic cross, I'm going to show you an example of this too right now. Let me see which way. Hold on one second. Yeah, here's the Celtic cross. The Celtic cross is fun. You can get some real information from a Celtic cross. It goes theme in the middle, situation. The card over that is what crosses it. Bottom is subconscious. Then the next one's past. Then above is conscience. Then near future. Then you as you are, environment, what leads to the future. Anyway, you should copy and paste that link I just put in the chat if you want to see what I'm talking about. It's the most recent one. It's called the Celtic Cross Tarot Spread. And then what I do as a modification on that for myself, because what people generally want to see is more of the future and what's to come. And so I'll draw like 6 or 7 more cards. And then I'll pattern them in ways that are intuitive. And that's a little more advanced and might be something that you want to think about more later. But just know all of that to say, you can do what you want and what you feel with tarot. And you should really just listen to what your instincts are telling you. If you feel like you've put down your 3-card spread and your future card doesn't really make a lot of sense to you, for example, you should then pull another card and put it beside or a little bit on top of that future card as what I call it's just a way to expand upon what that original card meant. And it gives you a bigger picture of what its possibilities are. So for example, if I drew this as the future card in my 3-card spread, he's like, you need to release something so something new can come in. You're trying to control this situation too much. I'm like, cool, okay, but what exactly are you telling me to release? I'm not clear on that. And I don't really feel like I'm trying to control this situation too much. Sometimes I might put a card on and like lay it like this, right next to it. And this is like an emphasis card on this one. And that was my intention. And then temperance is telling me that I need to have patience, that I need to let the flow of life happen. And where this is like hard control, this is like go with the flow. So this is more of like, this card is in telling me that I need to take a different mental health approach to this situation. So anyway, that's what an emphasis card is, and I use them all the time, especially if somebody has more questions about something and I don't want to just make something up and I do want to have more context to work from, then I will draw additional cards. But once again, in some of those other classes, we will be talking about those intricate spreads more. But I really love Biddy Tarot, and that's why I've been sending you all a lot of resources from her, because she does have books that I like, and her website is great, and she's got a lot of these things that are common questions available with answers. So you should definitely take advantage of that. I would recommend that as a trustworthy resource moving forward if you can't talk to me. So in regards to using your intuition, you know, I could, because I've done it for so long, I could probably do a reading in almost any sort of space. With that being said, the more you can take ownership and purpose with what's around you before and during a reading can only help. Candles, oils, what are you smelling? What is connecting you? Like lavender really works for me, makes me feel elevated, makes me tap into that spiritual high priestess side. Some people meditate before they do readings, or even pray before readings, just to connect with that still center, or to connect with something around us, like our higher self or a person that we're trying to communicate with. Maybe that's passed on. Being quiet and still is always a good method before diving into cards. Crystals, gosh, there's so many crystals, and yeah, and I have specific crystals that really work well for me. I love quartz and rose quartz. I actually use rose quartz instead of for external love, more for me, self-love, and the reminding of myself that I am worthy and deserve the things that I seek, on an emotional level. And what else can you do? Yeah, and I think I mentioned, if I didn't, sound can be helpful, or it can be really distracting, and that's something you should just experiment with. I just, because I worked in a mystic shop for so long, have gotten used to a lot of like secondary noise, people talking, music in the background. I've learned how to tune that out. But one thing I can't ever tune out, and that is difficult for me, is if there are a lot of people around actually watching and experiencing the reading I'm doing for somebody, one person in particular, if that makes sense. So if I'm in that reading room at where I work, and somebody wants to bring a guest in, that's generally fine. I can generally do like one guest, but that whole time I'm like zeroed in on that one person that I'm reading for. I'm paying attention to their energy. I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm trying to read between the lines. I'm just feeling them. I'm feeling them, and I'm reading them on a vibration level. And I completely block out that other person. If there's more than one guest in the room, and I've had this happen where they start talking or reacting to some things I'm saying to the person I'm reading for, that takes me personally out of the zone, and that can make it a little more challenging. So just know that if you become good at this, or you already are good at this, and you bring your deck of cards to a party where you know everybody's going to want to have a reading and everybody's going to want to watch, that you create your own boundaries in what you need in order to do well. And maybe that means going off in a side room where nobody else is, where there's a little more quiet, where you can shut a door and just talk to that person. Because it's not a party trick, it's not a party favor, and people will always want it if you offer it. And energy management is a whole other topic too, because yeah, as you can imagine, doing readings back to back to back not only drains you it drains you in so many ways. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I eventually got to a place where I could do it for 5 hours or whatever my shift would be and be fine. But for the first few months where I was doing it in a professional space, I was exhausted when I left, and I had to learn how to protect my energy. And so protect your energy. Listen to your body. If you start becoming tired and fatigued, you don't want to burn out your gift. Your gift is for you and the people that you love the most. Know why you're doing it for somebody, and make sure it's coming from a place of genuine interest in helping them, and not just like watching the time clock until it's over and they leave. I mean, you have to really care and connect to do a reading for somebody, to do a reading for anybody. If somebody doesn't have general empathy, then they're probably not going to be a great tarot reader. If y'all have any questions about that, let me know. In regards to how to create boundaries and protect yourself at any time, even outside of this session, just let me know. Because I do have very specific thoughts about that. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today, I'm sure maybe some of you know what, we talked about space and what's around you. And I'm in a space right now that I curated and I made to where it makes me feel great. And I talked about lavender, and here's a bunch of lavender right behind me. And I smell lavender all around me. But there's something too called an altar. And that can be one of those words that freak people out. They're like, oh God, that sounds like a real witchy thing. And it's not. You probably do have altars already in your house. Like you may have a section of your house where you have pictures of your family or objects that you found that are important and mean something to you. That's literally all an altar is. It's a place where you can sit in front of that has special things to you in your life. It can be anything that speaks to you, that recharges your batteries, that connects you to the energy and the things around you. Altars are beautiful, and you should research them. Pinterest, you can look up a bunch of people's altars and see what they've done. A lot of people like bones, and there are definitely very witchy altars out there, but there can be some real, like, seemingly you would walk by it and not even realize it was an altar. So anyways, all these fun things that you can do to curate your own practice and make it who you are and make whatever your spirituality is special. And just start doing it. I mean, there's no timeline. You can just start collecting and putting or moving it somewhere else if it doesn't work. I move mine often. I'll do readings in the house and I'll move some of these things and bring it in. Then if I come back out, I'll bring it back out. I like to have candles lit. Candles make me feel elevated too for some reason. Yeah. I particularly like black candles, even though I don't necessarily feel at risk to negative energies entering my space whenever I do things. I think I've said that before, but that is something that happens to people, and black candles are protection against that kind of thing. So if that makes you feel better. But as you know, especially with tarot, now that we've gone through all of this, you see very clearly, I hope, that we're not trying to talk to anything with bad intentions here. We're talking to ourselves. And why would we ever deny access of such a powerful tool to us or to anybody we love? So just remember that. And it's a good way to explain it to others who don't understand, because believe me, a lot of people don't understand how tarot actually works. So the last thing I wanted to talk about and be thinking too as I go through this, if y'all have any last questions, and once again, you can reach me anytime because I love all of y'all. And I feel connected to each of you. So is the shadow self. We touched on that briefly yesterday, that we would be talking about that today. And this is kind of some work you can, this is work you can do with yourself, with nobody else around. It's real deep, and it's like shining a flashlight into the dark corners of your soul or self that you've been told is a shameful thing about you, or something you can't reveal to others. And why is that? Why does that thing need to be hidden? It's a part of who you are. And shadow work is understanding why that thing is a part of your life experience, and to what you can do to work with it and bring it back and help it be a bridge between you and others who maybe have a similar experience or reality. So shadow work and the shadow self can be very heavy, obviously. You can explore past trauma if you want to. You don't have to, though. I mean, you can choose what you're wanting to look at in these corners. So always know that you're safe and protected and that you get to choose what you bring out into the light. And tarot is a pretty cool tool for that. So let's say, for example, maybe we lost somebody that we really loved and we were very young and we healed from that. You know, obviously we're here to a certain degree or whatever. Are we ever fully healed? Is, you know, probably not. But we want to revisit that trauma and how it impacted our lives. We may want to call that person when we do tarot if we want, if we felt comfortable with that. If it wasn't somebody that was purely positive in our lives, we may just want to look at, like, what parts are left unprocessed for me? What did I learn from this? How does this relate to wounds from past lifetimes? You know, there's so many questions you can ask. And I'm actually about to give you a list of things that you can ask when you're doing shadow self work with the tarot. I made a list here for you. So, what does my inner child want me to know? That could be a card. It could be 3 cards. Talking to that little girl or that young man or that younger person inside of us that went through this thing, or even the 30-year-old version of us that went through something. We can still go back to a point in time and address that version of ourselves. What am I hiding from myself at this time that happened to me during that era or during that incident? Those are some cards. Why am I not sleeping? Sometimes physical ailments can be attached to past traumas and we may not even realize it. So if we want to explore why, and also if you believe in past lifetimes, you can even ask things like, why do I have a constant pain in my left abdomen, can't ever say that word, my left hip. And that could have been a wound that happened in a previous lifetime, if you believe in such things. Or it could be where we're carrying our pain and trauma. So that could be some cards to ask. Is this pain attached to something, a life experience that I've had in this lifetime or in the past? And will working with that knowledge help release me from that pain? Those are some cards you can do with the shadow self. Just really quick, what qualities am I projecting onto others? It's shadow work. Where do I need help is just a general question we can ask about the shadow self. What is the source of my pain? What will I be able to achieve once I remove this pain? How do I move forward? What are the next logical steps? So those are just some ideas that you can use when looking at those harder topics. And lastly, that's shadow self work. And I'm gonna look here because there was something else I wanted to talk to y'all about today. Yeah, I think that might be it. So, does anybody have any questions? If you do, please send it through the chat. We'll open it up here for a second. And it's okay if nobody has a question right now. We'll give it a second. I really feel, okay, what do you like about Biddy Tarot? So many books, experts out there. Yeah, I feel like she's real practical, and I think she is attainable for the beginner. If you were to ask me at an intermediate or advanced level, I might recommend somebody else or somebody different, depending on where your interests, on how your interests were going. If you were interested in more like astrology and tarot, or if you were interested in more like witchy elements of tarot, you know? So, but I think that Brigit from Biddy Tarot, she's just somebody I feel like anybody off the street could immediately relate to. She's got a welcoming tone, and she's done the work. She's done the research. She's really good at making things very clear and easy to understand, and works on a building block kind of format. So I think she's great. And the more I know about each of you, like you, Mary, and where your talents and skills lie as you grow, then I have got a plethora of like resources and people to point y'all at that are all just doing all kinds of different things. So my niece Lily asked me, how is my dog? Cilantro is great. She is outside. She's had a very good day. Yeah. Mary, or anybody for that matter, I follow some really cool people through the Realm Tarot site on Instagram. I would go through that and just start seeing people and people that you connect with. I really love Chani Nicholas. Are y'all familiar with her, the astrologer? Most of y'all probably are. And if you're not, yes, she is so epically cool. So epically cool. And somebody else who's very iconic, or somebody who is iconic in the tarot space, is Mary Greer. Greer. She's written some of those books that I put up there for y'all. She, man, she's a wizard. And I love her approach to reading and to the books that she writes. She's a little more advanced, in my opinion, and maybe not as easy to connect with for somebody just off the street as Brigit is. But yeah, the cats are great. My cats are awesome. You may think of anything else I want to say. We did a real good job at going through everything, and I really felt like everybody here is open and understood what was happening. In other classes, yeah, people generally are there because they want to and they have an interest in tarot, but I just feel like for some reason that some of you have a really interesting gift or access to this space. So yeah, well, thank you guys so much. And once again, I'm around if you have questions. And this has been really fun for me. I hope it was fun for y'all. And thanks for your patience, because I know it's a lot of listening and paying attention. But all right, I'll talk to you all soon. Oh, yay! I'll see you soon, Trina, in the intermediate class. That's going to be really fun. There's some really cool people in that. And oh, you're welcome, Mary. All right, see y'all soon, and reach out anytime, okay? And Trina and Mary, if y'all want to be connected later, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. All right. See you later. Bye.